Worry is something we all experience, but it rarely brings anything helpful to our lives. In fact, it tends to do the opposite. While we think that worrying somehow prepares us or protects us from what's ahead, the truth is it doesn't change tomorrow at all. It only robs us of today's peace. Jesus addressed this directly in Matthew 6:34, when he said, "Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." Those words are powerful. They remind us that worry is not only unnecessary, it's a burden we were never meant to carry. When we worry, we often replay the same concerns over and over in our minds. We imagine worst-case scenarios. We analyze every detail, and we try to mentally solve problems that haven't even happened yet. It can be exhausting. And while we're mentally stuck in what-ifs, we miss the beauty of what's right in front of us. The present moment. The only moment we truly have is sacrificed at the altar of an imagined future. That's the cost of worry. It robs us of joy, steals our peace, and keeps us from fully living. God doesn't want us to live that way. He calls us to trust Him, not just in the good times, but especially in the uncertain ones. He sees the bigger picture. He knows the end from the beginning. And He promises that He's working all things together for our good, even when we can't see how. When we choose to trust instead of worry, we're saying, God, I don't have to know how it's all going to work out. I just need to know that You do. Think about how much energy we spend worrying about things that either never happen or end up being less serious than we imagined. Our minds go to the worst possible places. And yet God continues to prove Himself faithful time and time again. We've all had moments where we look back and realize we stressed over something that God had under control the entire time. But in the moment, worry blinds us. It keeps us focused on the storm instead of the one who calms the storm. Worry also reveals where we're placing our trust. Are we trusting our own understanding, our ability to plan and prepare, or are we truly trusting God's promises and provision? Proverbs 3:5 and 6 tells us to trust in the Lord with all our hearts and lean not on our own understanding. That's not always easy, especially when life feels uncertain. But when we surrender control and place our trust in God, we open the door to peace, the kind of peace that doesn't make sense to the world. Peace doesn't come from having all the answers. It doesn't come from perfect circumstances. It comes from knowing that God is with us, that He's for us, and that He's already gone ahead of us. When we let go of worry and embrace trust, we're free to live in the moment, to be present, and to experience the joy that comes from walking with God day by day. So the next time worry tries to take over, pause and ask yourself, is this helping me, or is it just stealing my peace? Most of the time the answer is clear. Let that be your reminder to breathe, to pray, and to trust that God has your tomorrow already taken care of. Your job isn't to have everything figured out. It's simply to walk with Him one day at a time. Life has a way of surprising us with challenges we never saw coming. Whether it's a loss, a setback, a disappointment, or a dream that seems to be slipping away, problems can feel overwhelming. In those moments, it's easy to wonder if God sees us, if He hears our prayers, and if He really has a plan. But the truth we often forget in the middle of our struggles is this: God's plan is bigger than our problem. We tend to measure things based on what we can see and understand. Our perspective is limited by time, emotions, and circumstances. But God sees the whole picture, past, present, and future. He's not surprised by what we're going through. In fact, He's already made a way through it. Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." That verse doesn't say all things are good. It says God works in all things, even the painful ones, for our good. That means no problem is wasted when it's placed in God's hands. Sometimes the problems we face are actually part of the process. We want straight paths and smooth roads, but often it's in the detours and difficulties that God shapes our character, deepens our faith, and draws us closer to him. Joseph in the Bible is a perfect example. He was sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused and thrown into prison. For years, it seemed like his life was going in the opposite direction of the dreams God gave him. But through it all, God was orchestrating a plan that would not only elevate Joseph, but save an entire nation. What looked like a problem was actually preparation. In our own lives, we might not understand why we're going through certain things, but we can trust that God is not wasting any of it. That closed door, it might be protecting you. That delay, it might be positioning you. That heartbreak, it might be the beginning of healing in a deeper way than you expected. God's plan is not always comfortable, but it is always purposeful. He sees beyond what we can see and works in ways that often don't make sense at the time, but become clear in hindsight. The enemy wants to use our problems to make us feel defeated, discouraged, and disconnected from God. But God uses them to remind us of his strength, his grace, and his unshakable promises. When we lean on him instead of our own understanding, we allow him to guide us through the storm, not just to survive it, but to grow in it. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to question. But don't stay there. Bring your concerns to God. Be honest with him. Let him carry what you were never meant to handle alone. The same God who parted the Red Sea, who shut the mouths of lions, who raised the dead, is the God who's walking with you right now, and he has a plan for your life that is far greater than any obstacle in your way. No matter what you're facing today, remember that your problem is not the end of the story. God is still writing, still working, still weaving together a plan that brings glory to him and good to you. Trust that he knows what he's doing. His ways are higher, his timing is perfect, and his love for you never fails. What feels like a mountain now will one day be a testimony of how God moved on your behalf. His plan is bigger, better, and more beautiful than anything we could imagine. Keep trusting, keep walking, and keep believing. Trust is not a one-time decision we make and never have to think about again. It's a daily choice, sometimes even a moment-by-moment decision, especially when life feels uncertain or overwhelming. Each day brings new challenges, questions, and circumstances that stretch our faith. And in those moments, we're invited to choose whether we'll lean into God or lean on our own understanding. There are days when trusting God feels easy, when prayers are answered quickly, when things fall into place, and when life seems to be going according to plan. But there are also days when trust feels hard, when the answers don't come, when the path ahead is foggy, and when we feel like we're walking through the unknown. It's in those difficult days that trust becomes not just a word we say, but a posture we live. It's choosing to believe that God is still good, still present, and still working, even when our emotions tell us otherwise. Every morning we have the opportunity to start fresh, to reset our hearts, and remind ourselves that we don't walk through the day alone. When we wake up and say, God, I trust you today, we're not pretending everything is perfect. We're simply acknowledging that He is in control and we are not. We're handing over our worries, our plans, and our fears, and placing them into His capable hands. Trust also means letting go of the need to have all the answers. We love certainty, we love clarity, but faith doesn't always come with a roadmap. Sometimes God asks us to take the next step without revealing the full picture, and that can feel risky, but that's where growth happens. It's in the trusting that we learn to walk by faith and not by sight. It's in the small, quiet choices, like choosing prayer over panic or praise over complaining, that our trust is strengthened. When we look back over our lives, we often see how God's faithfulness has carried us through seasons we once thought we'd never survive. Those memories can become anchors for our trust. They remind us that if He was faithful then, He will be faithful now. But even with that history, trust still needs to be nurtured daily. Life changes quickly. New trials come. Old fears resurface. And each day we have to choose again to believe that God is who He says He is. It's important to remember that trust isn't about having perfect faith. It's not about never having doubts or questions. It's about choosing to believe in spite of them. It's holding on to God even when you don't understand Him. It's saying, God, I don't know what you're doing, but I know you're with me. That's real trust. And that kind of trust brings peace in the chaos. Daily trust also keeps our hearts tender. It helps us stay connected to God, to hear His voice more clearly, and to respond with obedience. When we trust Him daily, we become more aware of His presence in the little things, His guidance in a conversation, His comfort in a quiet moment, His strength when we feel weak. Trust opens the door for God to work deeply in our hearts and lives. So today, choose to trust, not because everything makes sense, but because God is worthy of that trust. Let it be the first decision of your morning and the last prayer before you sleep. Say it with your words, but also with your choices, your attitude, and your actions. Trust is not always easy, but it is always worth it. And the more you choose it, the more you'll see that God truly is faithful every single day. Waiting can be one of the hardest things we do in life. Whether we're waiting for a breakthrough, a promise to be fulfilled, or an answer to prayer, it often feels like time is standing still. We look around and wonder why things aren't happening yet, why doors aren't opening, or why circumstances seem unchanged. In those moments, it's easy to feel forgotten or overlooked. But the truth is, God is never late. He's always right on time. His timing doesn't always match ours, and that can be frustrating. We live in a fast-paced world where we want results immediately, but God operates on an eternal timeline. He sees things from a perspective we can't. What feels like a delay to us might actually be divine preparation. We might feel ready, but God knows what lies ahead. He sees the full picture, and He's never in a rush. He's always intentional. There are countless examples in the Bible where God's timing seemed delayed from a human perspective. Think of Abraham and Sarah. God promised them a child, but they waited decades before Isaac was born. During that time, they questioned, doubted, and even tried to create their own solution. But when God fulfilled His promise, it was at the exact moment it was meant to happen. It wasn't early, it wasn't late, it was right on time. Or consider the story of Lazarus. When Jesus was told that his friend was sick, he waited 2 more days before going to him. By the time he arrived, Lazarus had already died. People were confused. If only you had come sooner, they said. But Jesus had a greater plan. He wasn't late. He was setting the stage for a miracle that would glorify God and strengthen the faith of everyone who witnessed it. In our own lives, we might be in a season of waiting right now. Maybe we've been praying for something for a long time and haven't seen it come to pass. It's tempting to think God has forgotten us or changed his mind. But God's silence is not absence, and his delay is not denial. He's working behind the scenes in ways we can't see, arranging things perfectly so that when the time is right, everything will fall into place. When we begin to understand that God's timing is perfect, it brings peace to our hearts. We can stop striving, stop comparing our journey to others, and stop panicking when things don't happen as quickly as we expected. God is not bound by our deadlines. He's not pressured by our clocks. He is sovereign, and he is trustworthy. It's also important to realize that sometimes God is doing a work in us while we wait. He might be building our character, teaching us to rely on him, or preparing us for something greater than we imagined. What we see as a pause, God sees as purpose. And when the wait is over, we'll look back and realize that his timing was better than anything we could have planned. So if you're in a season where it feels like nothing is moving, don't lose heart. Don't give up. Keep trusting. Keep praying. Keep showing up. God hasn't forgotten you. He's not ignoring your prayers. He's just waiting for the right moment. And when it comes, it'll be worth every second of the wait. Because he's never late. He's always on time. And he always comes through. Let go of control is one of the hardest things to do. Especially when life feels uncertain or when everything around us seems chaotic. We naturally want to fix things, to plan every detail, and to make sure everything turns out the way we hope. Control gives us a sense of safety, a false confidence that if we can just manage all the moving parts, everything will be okay. But the reality is we're not in control, and we never really were. That's why surrendering to God is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's not giving up, it's giving over. Surrender is choosing to trust that God knows more, sees more, and has more power than we ever will. It's admitting that our strength is limited, but his is limitless. When we try to control everything, our relationships, our future, our finances, our health, we carry a burden we were never meant to bear. That kind of pressure wears us down emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. But when we let go and place our lives in God's hands, we step into a peace that only he can give. Jesus modeled this kind of surrender perfectly. In the Garden of Gethsemane, facing unimaginable suffering, he prayed, "Not my will, but yours be done." That is the heart of true surrender, not demanding our own way, but trusting God's way, even when it's hard or unclear. Surrender doesn't mean we stop caring or become passive. It means we actively choose to trust, even when we don't understand. It means we trade our anxiety for his peace, our fear for his faithfulness. One of the main reasons we struggle with surrender is because we're afraid of what might happen if we let go. We worry that things won't turn out how we want them to, or that God might take us in a direction we didn't plan. But surrender isn't about losing ourselves. It's about finding who we truly are in him. When we release our grip, we make room for God to move in ways we couldn't imagine. His plans are always better than ours, even when we don't see it right away. Surrender also means trusting God with the timing. We often want immediate answers, quick solutions, and instant results. But God's timeline rarely matches ours. He works in seasons, not seconds. And sometimes He delays not to deny us, but to develop us. There are things God wants to grow in us during the wait. Patience, endurance, humility, faith. When we surrender, we allow that growth to happen. We stop rushing and start resting. There's great freedom in letting go. When we finally loosen our grip and give God control, we're no longer responsible for outcomes. We're simply responsible for obedience. Taking the next step He shows us, even if we can't see the whole path. And when we live that way, life becomes less about striving and more about abiding. We move from fear to faith, from pressure to peace. Surrender is a daily practice. It's waking up each morning and saying, God, I give you my plans, my expectations, my fears, and my dreams. Lead me, guide me, help me to follow you with an open heart. It's not a one-time decision. It's a daily lifestyle of trusting the one who loves us more than we can comprehend.